All right, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by another live episode of Real Estate Titans. I'm your host, Greg Fowler, traveling throughout the marketplace, interviewing the top real estate professionals in our field, essentially gathering insight, inspiration, really drives and motivates these top producers above and beyond everybody else in what I'd like to consider a real estate titan. Now, our very special guest and feature titan today, all the way from San Diego, California, Daniel Beer. Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time. It's an absolute honor and a thrill to have you on the show.
Thanks, man. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is super cool. I just can't wait to dive into the series of questions, get everybody to know you deeper as a man, as a professional, and really share you with the Titan Nation. So if you're ready to roll, Daniel, let's just jump into it.
Let's do it, man. Shoot.
Okay, cool. So starting with the first question, really getting to know you on a personal basis, tell everybody just a little bit about yourself.
I'm in San Diego. I was actually born in Mexico City. So were my parents and grandparents. Everyone before then came from overseas.
Okay.
But I was from Mexico City, grew up in San Diego, though, the majority of my life, since I was a little kid. So sure. This is home. And I'm married with 3 kids. I've almost 6-year-old. I have 2-year-old twins, almost 3-year-old twins, actually, in a couple weeks.
Oh, my gosh.
And run this awesome business, man, in this crazy industry. I get to now help a lot. You know, one of the best things that's happened for me is I get to help so many other people now. Just make that transition from being a practitioner to really thinking about their business as a business person. There's a lot that has to happen in that journey, and it's a journey that not a lot of people actually embrace, surprisingly enough, because I find it to be incredibly fun and you know, but it's a challenge, and I think that a lot of people run into that challenge, and when I get to help them break through, it's rewarding for me. It's also what I really love to do. Yeah, dude, that's about it. I have this real estate team in San Diego. We've been lucky enough to be honored by the likes of the Inc. 5000, 3 years now running, Wall Street Journal top 100 teams in the country. We're closing 200 million plus a year over the last number of years consecutively, and just looking to grow, man. So it'll be fun to be here in front of your audience. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I love it. And again, Daniel, that's giving everybody a good insight into the direction of what's going on. I want to rewind just a touch into the initial thought process of you getting into real estate. So what was your thought? Why did you decide to go into real estate? There's lots of different opportunities out there for really smart business professionals. And it's always interesting for the audience to understand what got you into the business in the first place. So what was it?
I disliked my previous career.
Okay.
That's
enough.
It. We're largely an industry of people that dislike their previous career.
Wow. I love it.
You know, and unfortunately, there's a very low barrier to entry, and just about anybody can go get a license. I suppose I benefited from that at some point, but not really, because I feel like I could have gotten my license even if it had been a little tougher.
Right.
And I got licensed. My dad was going to sell a house. I was 23 years old at the time. This is 15 years ago.
Wow. And,
you know, it's interesting because I get asked that question a lot, particularly anytime I'm doing anything like this. I get asked that question, and it's, you know, I have the same shitty answer as everybody else. You know, that's just the truth. It's a lot. I have a problem with how amateur the industry is as a result of, and as a condition of, how simple it is to literally go and deal with people's multi-$100,000, if not multi-million-dollar assets. It's so much more difficult to become a beautician and do people's hair and makeup.
Right.
And by the way, I don't say that lightly, saying it's not an important profession or that it's not, you know, good work. And I bring that up because I know it's 1,600 hours of education. I have people in my circle of friends and family that are in that field. And it's important work. Having said that, it's just a little bit interesting how much more difficult it is to get into that field than this one.
Right.
When the consequences of them having a bad day at the office aren't nearly as catastrophic as a real estate agent annihilating somebody's retirement.
Right. Well said.
So, but there you go, man. That's how I got in the industry.
Yeah. And Daniel, when you mentioned that, I mean, you're speaking to, you know, the audience that's in here, and there's a lot of people nodding their heads because the true pros are really paying attention to other true professionals. And that's the majority of our audience right here. And you know, the barrier to entry, as everybody knows, is low. And there's such a high turnover rate in the first year, and then year two, 80%, and then 90% plus in year one, year two. And I think that has something to do with it. If the threshold was higher, if it was more difficult, then I think that it would separate, I think, a level of professionalism and integrity to go and continue through to that first few years and really get through. And I think it would be better for everybody. But it's a constant problem, but the best of the best make it through. And hence that, you talked about 15 years in the biz. I mean, that's no short stint. So really it shows that level of integrity and commitment that you have and the reputation that you have with your clients and your team as growth. And that's a huge standpoint. And again, why I'm honored to have you on the show and dive a little bit deeper into it. So let's go into the next question into this. And I think this is a deeper dive into you as a man and a professional. It's the why question. Now I know that's thrown around a lot, what's your why, all these things, but really, truly, Daniel, if you could think about it, what gets you out of bed every morning and motivated to do what you do, as long as you have to the level that you do it at? What is it?
Yeah, I don't have like the story about how I grew up in the Soweto and like watched I don't have any crazy big story.
Yeah.
I like to win. I like business. I like to figure out this puzzle of how you put people together. And I'm not talking about buyers and sellers. I'm talking about how you put people together in an organization to all move in one direction on a continuous basis, quarter over quarter, year over year, in a changing business environment. I just enjoy it. I think it's fun. I like to make money. I like the things I can do with money. I like the people that I can help now that I have a little bit of it.
Right.
And I'm focused on making sure that I do, my dad gave us a better life than I think his parents gave him. I think it's my responsibility to leave my kids the same way.
Wow.
And it doesn't really go that much deeper for me, but that's been enough.
Hey, Daniel, that's pretty deep. You're talking about your family and your legacy in the community and impact the people that are around you and really treating this like a true business and not just flying by the seat of your pants. And I think that that's huge when it comes to compelling nature. We didn't dive deep into the Beer Home Team and again, everything that you're doing in the community. Is it all right if you talk a little bit about that for the audience, just to dive a little bit deeper into your business and your brand, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I operate the Beer Home Team. We broker through EXP Realty. Okay. We have 30 or so people on our core team. Our core team is made up of people that are all focused on building the Beer Home Team brand. The Beer Home Team brand means something in San Diego County. It's something that we've poured literally, 7 figures plus into.
Wow.
And it's really the best decision I've ever made, was to build out that brand in a strong way. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, through the group that we've built, which really we think about it as a training platform, as a mentorship group, where there's perfect alignment, because I only get paid for the work I do with my mentees, with the people in the group. I only get paid if they sell homes, because It's set up on a minute little referral fee basis. And I'm talking minute, like low single digits.
Right.
So I have partners across the country, 36 different states. I've been doing it for 2 years now, as far as growing that part of our business through the EXP platform. Wow. 1,588 partners as of today. So Unreal. It's really a fun thing. Like on March 20th, for example, I'll be, and I'm not sure exactly when this is. Well, we're live now, right? So this is airing now.
Yeah.
So on March 20th, I'll be in Phoenix with our partners, having a day-long mastermind. We were in Key West on the East Coast earlier this year. We'll be in St. Thomas later in the year. Wow. We have an big event coming up in Dallas later in the year. So anyway, we have a lot of fun. But the beautiful thing about it is all we focus on is helping each other grow our real estate business. And our guess simply would be that would be attractive to people. And that's been attractive for what us is the right people.
Right.
And so that's the gist of it. The Beer Home Team is doing, we just had our second consecutive $200 million year of sales volume.
Unreal.
This year, the goal is to sell 404 homes, and that should put us right at about 300 million in production.
Okay.
So it's fun. We were awarded one year the #1 team at all of EXP Realty. Wow. Our first year at EXP. The next year we were #2. I believe we're still #2. And I'm proud to be #2, because the guy that beat us, he's a freaking beast in Houston that did 400 million last year. So I'm okay losing to that guy.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
No, I think that you're diving really deep into really, your core values and what's happening and really making things. And again, that continuous message that's feeding through is treating it like a true business and really leveraging and building a right structure to not only do more transactions and more volume, but you're able to touch more lives. You're able to really make an impact in the community of San Diego and all over the world that you really are influencing into the real estate market. So I want to dive into question number 3, and this is actually a crowd pleaser for all the people who are watching or listening to this because they want to learn from the Titans. They really want to understand how you've grown and scaled your business or continue to. So if you could, Daniel, look back at your business thus far, pick or choose 1 or 2 things that you added to your business that you really felt that it took it to another level, that you really saw that needle spike. What's that look like for you?
There's been several.
Okay. Yeah.
The first one was when I got real about having a predictable lead generation platform.
Love it.
That would create leads regardless, despite if dad's friend called and sold a house and needed, like, this, let that all go, which, by the way, the marketplace forced that on me because the market crash came in 2008, 2009.
Sure.
And so when that goes away, number one was I built a true lead generation platform, and those today they're more popular, more common. In those days, they were very rare. Everybody had like glamour websites, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I tore that thing down and built a search site that forced registration and started to generate leads.
Love it.
Move forward. The point being is you have to have a lever you can pull on that is going to give you business.
Correct.
Most agents, when you're starting, you're going to trade time for money, and that's okay. You're going to trade time for money. You need to then take that cash that's being generated. Of course, you have to live on it and, save and all that. But the part of that cash needs to be invested back into the business, into something that over time will allow you to free your time. Okay, so it will allow you to free your time up. And instead, you can have more marketing-based business, which is really trading money for more money, instead of trading time for money. That's the kind of thing that could eventually lead to you being, on vacation for a month and come back home and find out that you sold 30 homes. Like, that's the sort of thing that can happen when you do that consistently over time.
Fantastic.
But so the first was that. The second was stepping out of the buyer side of the business. And there came the day when I literally said, Brian, here you go. And I mean, here you go. Not here you go when I don't want to get to somebody. Not here you go when it's not like a really good buyer. Not here you go when it's not $1 million buyer. I mean, he worked with my brother that year on a purchase. Okay.
Wow.
Here you go. So what I did was I traded a percentage of my income, because it's not as if I wasn't getting paid on that business.
Sure.
I traded a percentage of my income. At the time it was 40%. For 100% of my time.
Right.
That is I'll take that deal every single day of the week. That's
Agreed.
And it was awesome for him.
Yep.
He went from something that he was enjoying far less and it was amazing for him. It was amazing for me, except for I was left with 40% less income. So what was the next thing is that freed me up with all my time. I went and built the listing side. Move forward, get to the point where I step out of that side, never 100% fully. I'll still go on a listing appointment from time to time now, particularly in my farm, but I'm always going with one of our agents now. I like to say that 100% of the opportunity in our business goes through the agency. And when I go, I don't like charge them more or anything like that. They still get paid as if I wasn't there, but I will go from time to time to an appointment. But in any case, when we got the ability to have listings signed, even if I am on that 1 month vacation, that was a huge bump in the business.
Wow.
And then when we started to get into really brand building with media, like particularly radio was just a huge catalyst. But you have to be careful with it because we've also lost our ass a few times, and you have to have the exact perfect formula. And if you break the formula, what I found is you lose a lot of money. But we've also hit some home runs. So those are the times when, the business has consistently grown, but those are the times when it was like real lift. So yeah.
Yeah, no, those are all huge ads and takeaways for everybody who's watching or listening to this. And from a true professional who's been there, done that, bought the t-shirt and then some. And I think that when you're looking at it from the standpoint is leveraging an automation is the crucial key. And that's the message that I kept hearing in my head as you were speaking is every part of your business and every stage that was going through, you looked at it and where was your highest and best use of time, right? Where was the highest and best use of your time as a lead, as a producer, an individual? And then where can you leverage with a true extension of yourself and that team and that brand, so that it frees up more of your time to do what you do best, to another level, to a higher level. And really through the mainstays of, there's only really 3 ways to leverage and automate, especially into real estate. It comes down to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but you're looking at systems, technology, and people. And when I say systems, I don't just mean, typical into technology. I mean, a system could be a piece of paper that you write on, you get a new client, you move to a folder.
Well, for me, it's been people.
Okay.
More than anything else.
Sure.
So, I honestly, I left something out that's really important. So I'm glad we came back here.
Hit me.
There's when I stepped out of, there was technology when I had the first lever, right? But then it was people, when I had the people that could run the buyer side. There was people when I had people that could handle the listing side. But along the way, there was also people handling the back of the house. Right. And I almost went into real estate agent mode there, forgetting about that side. But we have the biggest investment, the biggest part of our overhead, the biggest thing that we spend money on from a W-2 perspective is people.
Right.
And the right people, when we're going to go and take over, say, hey, let's go with this new lead initiative, or let's go into this new farm, or let's do any of that. We also measure it against, if we took that money and hired a person, what would that do? Sure. Because people have been some of the best return that we've ever had.
I love
right.
it.
The right people, that first assistant, which gave lift to the company. So I could redo the whole story through people, right? When we, on the W-2 side of the business,
love it.
First assistant, that next one, but then, most agents will hire someone that they kind of have to tug up and pull with them because they're trying to hire kind of on the lower side of the scale. There's the time when I hired the person that I was like, oh my God, am I really going to do this? Like the person that had more capacity than we. Well, guess what happened? I paid double, triple, 2.5 times what I'd ever paid for somebody. Mm-hmm. But the business grew by $1 million in GCI, about $450,000 in profit after paying the person that year.
Right.
Right. So those have also been the things that have given higher degrees of growth to the business. Daniel, and that's where I spend all my time now, is in really just trying to become better at identifying talent, hiring them, leading them. But most importantly, when I say leading them, that sounds so not what I do on a day-to-day basis, because really what I've done is hired leaders.
Right.
So if you asked anybody in my organization, who's your boss, very few would say me.
Wow.
Most of them would say somebody else.
And that's building. Great. Well, and that's truly, the humility and honesty and integrity of what you built and what continue to build. And you had mentioned something that I absolutely love, that there's the best of the best really recognize this and understand it, is when you're bringing on that right person, that right system or technology, no matter what the cost is, when it is the right message and it is the right item for that particular avenue, you should be dramatically increasing your revenue. And it's interesting when somebody is not in that mindset. When you haven't done that before, it's scary. It's like, I'm spending this amount of money, I'm doing this, and it's always the opposite. If it's the right person, no matter what you're spending, you're going to increase your money as long as it's the right thing. Accidents happen, things happen, I get that. But
there's two things that a lot of real estate agents don't understand. One is that all employees, including W-2 employees, are on commission. They're all on commission. Well, where does our income come from? It comes from commission.
Right.
Okay, so all we do is generate commission. And so when we're paying employees, they're on commission. Yes, they might be on a salary of X amount of thousands, right? But they need to be held accountable to a return for the dollars paid for their position. And if it's not creating a return, then that's not a profitable position. It's not a position that you're going to find on the organizational chart for very long.
Wow.
So those are the two concepts. I just wrapped them into one. One is that employees, all W-2s, salaries, which agents are afraid of, they're actually some of the best investments we've ever made, and they're held accountable to a return.
Love it.
And you really should help them understand so that they can support the business the right way, so they could be proud and happy when those commissions are made. The right people, right, aren't ever like, oh, look at all the money you made and I made. They have to understand so that they go that extra mile and do what has to be done to make sure that deal comes through and it's closed and the client's happy and we get the referral. They need to understand that they're on commission too. If commissions stop coming in, there's also no salaries, right? So they're on commission.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that, Daniel. And again, these are true words of wisdom from an absolute top professional. So everybody, pause this, rewind it, take notes. This is huge information, Daniel, and truly, I appreciate you sharing a little bit of window into your life and experience, and with real estate specifics and how growing and scaling, and it never stops. But I do want to shift gears on the tone of this particular interview, and in this part of the series, it's the tricky part. It's the challenge question. So I'm not trying to throw zingers at anybody, but I think this is really important. We all deal with challenges, whether they're personal or professional challenges in our lives, and no one's exempt. Whether it's in the past, we're dealing with it now, or we haven't yet, but we will in the future. It's not so much what happens, but what we learn from, what we respond to, and what we can grow and share. So, Daniel, if you are comfortable sharing a personal or professional challenge that you dealt with, that you learned and overcame and became stronger because of it, what's that look like for you?
Man, a personal yeah. So the first one that comes to mind for me is we got hyper focused on the KPIs, growth for the sake of growth. And did you get your numbers? Did you hit your calls? Did you this? Did you that? Like we got obsessed with growth simply for the sake of growth. And there could be a point where growth really becomes toxic if it's not for the right reasons. Now, don't get me wrong, I'd like to see this organization 5 times bigger.
Sure.
But we have to get there in the right rhythm, and we have to get there for the right reasons.
Okay.
Growth for the sake of growth and KPIing people to death is not a recipe that's going to last very long. So you start to lose some good people.
Okay.
Then you start to realize that you're building an organization that you yourself wouldn't want to be a part of. I mean, who wants to come in and be KPI'd to death?
Right.
So that was a lesson I had to learn. We lost some good people because of it.
Right.
And it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing since. And you know what really made it come together is a mentor of mine who's probably the most aggressive human being in every way you could think of. Very successful business person, but just an ultra aggressive person, said to me, he said that to me. He said, growth for the sake of growth can be a very bad thing.
Yeah.
And to hear him say that, I was like, I never expected you to say that. Like, you don't say fluffy shit, right? Like, you say you're only like hard all the time.
I love it.
So that just kind of brought it into focus. So that was something.
Okay.
Personal. I don't know, man. I don't know of any personal. Nothing stands. Again, I wish I had some story of like this horrible thing that happened to me, and then I had to overcome it, and I climbed the mountain and got back up, and it's super inspirational. Everything's good. I have a nice family. I have a nice extended family. Yeah.
Well, and Daniel, and that's totally cool. And again, asking those questions, I mean, really, if it's there, it's there and it's something to share. If it's not, that's completely fine. You share the business side, and that's crucially important for this audience is, just having key performance indicator meltdowns and really just looking at those KPIs all day long, calls, revenue, you can wipe out the people, and it's all about the people. It's not an I situation. It's not Daniel. It's everybody, including Daniel, that makes this work. But understand that ahead of time is crucially important. So anybody out there who is in that same standpoint, they can listen and watch and learn from you. You went through that trench. You got out from it. You learned from it, and you guys are better because of it. And that's the point. That's really the point, is you don't let it stop you. You learn from it and you keep moving on, no matter what the case may be, personal or professional.
Right.
So yeah, no worries about not having some crazy insurmountable background, because not everybody does, right? And it's okay. I mean, we all look at our things in our lives and we deal with what we have. So I do want to shift gears, and this is actually one of my favorite questions. And this one ends up being the travel back in time question. Now, this isn't designed to change anything that you went through, because everything that you went through in your life, positive and or negative, personal or professional, made you who you were. So you don't want to change any of that or adjust any of it. However, if you could go back in time, Daniel, at any age range, any time frame of your life, and give yourself a piece of advice or two, what would you say to young Daniel?
What would I say? I don't know, just a few things popping to mind are, I would have spent probably some more time after college just finding myself, whatever that means, right?
Sure.
But I mean, like,
Sure.
maybe just living in Manhattan and doing nothing
Hmm.
and being a waiter or whatever. I'm not saying that's
Sure.
nothing,
No, no, no,
being a
no.
waiter. I just mean like if you're a waiter because you're doing it as a career because you're in that profession and you're doing it to build, then awesome.
Right.
I'm talking about just like being a waiter at like a taco restaurant and like just making my way, trying to live in Manhattan for a year and
Sure.
bum my way through. That's what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
So I would have probably wanted to do a little more of that. Um, Man, I would have really, and people told me, so
Okay.
people told me, but man, I would have really, I wish you could understand what it means when people tell you to really soak up those years when you're married
Hmm.
and no kids, the pre-kid years.
Wow.
Like to think back, and it's almost impossible to even remember what it was to think of like waking up on a Saturday and like having nothing to do at all. Like zero. Like it's a
Gosh.
weird thing to really even remember what the heck that was or what it felt like or what would we do.
Oh, wow.
So I would have just, I don't know. I feel like there was more that could have been done with that time.
Yeah.
It's definitely different with three kids.
Oh, no doubt.
Um, those are a few things that come to mind. In my early professional career, I
Hmm.
wish I had been, I wish I'd found out sooner than like 4 years into the business that you could actually sell more than like, 15 homes a year. I thought
Okay.
that was like the most a human being could do. I
Wow.
remember being at a conference where somebody said, he just straight up said, and this is in San Diego, where very, if you're selling 20 homes a year in San Diego, you're like a rock star.
Sure.
And he said, look, if you're not selling 24 homes a year, that's just 2 homes a month. That means you're failing 28 days a month.
Wow.
If you're not doing that, then what the hell are you doing?
Hmm.
And I was like, holy shit, I didn't even know you could sell 24 homes a month. Like, I didn't know that was an option. I really didn't.
Unreal.
So I wish I'd gotten into environments like that sooner.
Okay.
That started to change my thinking, expand my mind, that kind of thing.
Well, so I want to address all that because what you said is huge advice for everybody who's watching or listening, and not just for young Daniel, but myself and everybody included. When you're talking about that time in those college age range where you want to explore and take off and really just soak in a little bit of life before you get down to it, there's so many portions and processes that we can all reflect on and try to find that time in our lives now, right? We can't go back and change that. But if there's a time in our life where we can figure out a way, and especially into real estate, and so many real estate professionals do this, is they're leveraging and automating their business. They're growing it to a true machine where they can truly take some time away. And they are gone for a month or two. We're not talking about years and years at a time, but I think that that's huge reflection to just take time and as you said, find yourself in a way, but do that over your lifetime. It doesn't have to be one specific time. And I think that's good advice all the way through. When you're talking about that time frame, and this hits home for me particularly. I'm a new dad. My daughter's 19 months old, and it's our first child. And I do remember those times where my wife and we literally had nothing to do on that time frame. It's like, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. Let's drive up to the mountains, and we drive up 3.5, 4 hours on a whim. We don't have anything planned. You just go and do it. Now it's regimented and everything's got to be in order and you got to plan and you got to get sitters, all this. I mean, it's not the same. But I guess the point is to me is we can't go back and adjust that and change that, but we can try to have reflection and try to have personal time with our spouse and really try to focus. And it's easier said than done, but you got to be able to put the time in and reflect on it. If you don't think about it, it's not going to happen. So I think that that's really, really reflective and utilized for everybody else into that. And then finally, what you're saying is those expectations. I mean, you're talking about production. Daniel, that's huge advice and information because we set those expectations and boundaries on ourselves. I mean, if you want to go out and get it, you got to hit that. You got to set it. And I find that it's not so much the goals and the dreams that people aspire for and they actually really get and receive. People
Mm-hmm.
mainly hit their minimal threshold of what they'll accept. It's not so much the goals and dreams because everybody wants this and this and this, but there's only a level of acceptance that people go through. So at that time, your level of acceptance was like, well, shoot, I thought it was 15. Look at where you are now. Do you know what I mean? So your level of acceptance is like way higher. And I think that it comes down to the facet is that if you want to go get it and you're only stopping yourself, surrounding yourself with great people. I mean, all that is just huge nuggets, like weaving in. Hopefully everybody's feeling this energy from Daniel and really, really taking this to heart because this is huge stuff. This is really, really great. So I do want to shift gears onto this, and this is actually second crowd pleaser. And this is that we only have 2 questions left. We're almost wrapped up. This one ends up being the feeding the mind question. So again, everybody who's watching or listening this particular series, they want to learn as the Titans learn. They want to grow intellectually as you guys do. So Daniel, if you could look back and, think about some books that you've read or are currently reading that inspire you, that you really enjoy, podcasts, influencers, coaches, how are you feeding your mind?
So books that stand out for me are almost anything Dan Kennedy.
Okay.
I particularly No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs, I think is the most important book he wrote.
Love it.
And it's a time management book, but it's actually a really great read. Just give it a chance and you'll see. And it made a number of things click for me that, again, were concepts we all agree with, all understand. But that book just made it really click, particularly the relationship between time and money. And, again, like, we can't expect to get paid $100 an hour if we could do $10 out. Like, right, we all know those things, but something about that book just made it sink, and really, like, from that moment on, I lived that way. It changed the way I behave.
Wow.
Man, what are some of the good books out there? I mean, there's been so many, right? I mean, back to the classics, right? Like Think and Grow Rich, and all those, and How to Win Friends and Influence People, and there's a lot out there. I tried to read a book, and honestly, I haven't been doing a great job of it recently.
Okay.
But for years, I just play a lot of golf. For years, what I would do is I just make sure I read a book every month. Okay. And I know there's some people that try to read a book every week.
Right.
Well, for me, that was too much.
Sure.
But if you put 12 good books in that, head of yours every year, that's a lot. And there's tons that will come from it. I spent years where all I would listen to, again, were podcasts when I was driving. And the thing I still do a ton of now, probably more or so now than ever before, is travel to different events, travel to masterminds and to lectures and to just any kind of environment where I might end up having dinner with people that are smarter than I am, so that I could, just take something with me.
Wow.
Really, it is difficult to be in a rich learning environment and not take something home that's going to be worth a ton of money. Because if you're committed to what you do, if you've really, not if you just got into real estate and you're like kind of dabbling and maybe you'll stay and maybe you'll go. I'm talking like if you really make this what you do, or whatever profession you're in, if you really make it what you do and who you are, it's, you're going to be good at it.
Right.
And if you're good at it, it's very difficult to learn something and not make money from it. So I spend a lot of time doing those things. Okay. The days of, for years and years, I think, everybody has to have a healthy obsession with success, with learning, with their industry. An obsession that might look unhealthy from the outside in, but you're healthy, you're doing okay. But like, we're really like, you're obsessed. You're not just into it, but you're obsessed. I don't really know. I know you're obsessed with what you do.
Sure.
Greg, and you and I haven't met anybody that's doing really well in any part of life that's not really into what they do.
Agreed, 100%.
So there were years, right, where I'd, hang out, have dinner, watch a show with my wife or whatever it might be. And once she was asleep, I'd be back up reading, right? Reading. So that's kind of what it looked like for a long time. Today, it really is just surrounding myself with people.
Okay.
And I read, but I just read a little less.
Okay. Well, but you're getting it in the right ways. And even you mentioned golf. I mean, a lot of my buddies play.
Actually read books on golf.
Well,
I'm healthily obsessed with that now.
But that's a good thing. It's a release. But when it comes down to the true professionals that especially play a lot of golf and are successful at it, it's not just about the game itself. It's the people that you're with. And several Titans that have been on the series that are heavy into golfing, they bring extremely intelligent professionals with them, and they learn a lot on the course, and not just about the game, about life, about business, philosophy. So when you're talking about those real conversations, I think that's one of the best ways to learn. Masterminding groups, traveling around, going to conferences and really soaking that in, getting to dinners with those people that are smarter, different perspectives. That's huge. books are great, podcasts are great, but the message is that the best of the best, and you're a part of that group, Daniel, is you're always learning, you're always growing in some form or fashion. And the passion comes out, the dedication, and it's consistency and massive amounts of effort over long periods of time. It doesn't happen overnight. But if you put enough effort and time frame, as you said, I mean, one day you will wake up and it will be different. But, it's that bell curve, it's that hockey stick effect, but compound, however you want to call it. But I think that's beautiful. And again, I'm going to, as always, everybody, I'm going to have a list in the comments down below so that you can feed your mind and really try to learn the same way that Daniel does and goes through. And there's just so much in here. And I know that, we only got to scratch the surface of your professionalism and expertise and just your brand in general, Daniel, but it's been an absolute blessing and a pleasure. I want to wrap everything up with a final question. Now, this one ends up being a quote or mantra that sums you up as a man, as a professional. What's that look like for Daniel Beer?
A quote or a mantra? You're exposing how not deep I am.
Come on, that's not true.
Quote or a mantra that sums me up as a professional. Man, I don't know. I'll use something that my guy John Cheplack uses all the time.
Okay.
Just because I used it with my sales team today in our sales meeting.
Love it.
And I think that something that I've been reasonably good at finding over time is just these little. This is John's quote, but it's just these little hinges that swing big doors.
Wow.
It's the use of language when you add this particular word or listen for this or omit that in the process of a negotiation, of a sale, of a discussion, of a recruitment, whatever it might be.
Wow.
Those little things, those subtle things, doesn't mean that if you didn't use them, you wouldn't sell houses.
Right.
But maybe you'd sell, instead of having sold 30 homes, you would sell 34 homes. And those 4 homes would be a great return. That's a lot of money for just having used or not used a particular word. So I look for and make use of these small, tiny little hinges that swing big doors.
I love that. And
you, not me.
But Danny, you can take that to exactly what you've done your entire career and gone through, and obviously addressing and seeing those things and making those big doors move. And you wouldn't be where you're at today without that consistently happening. So I think that sums you up beautifully. I mean, off the cuff all the way through and through. I thought that was perfect. So, but
who do you interview that's got like a quote ready to go?
People are on it.
Read my sheet. Did you ask me that?
I did. It's on
the sheet. There's the sheet right there. I didn't look at it.
People are on that. Some people just are meme monsters and machines, and they just have them coming out of everywhere. But no, I thought that was beautiful. I really did.
All right.
From the bottom of my heart, I thought everything was absolutely fantastic, and your messaging was super clear and crisp and really motivational to the people that are out there to really accelerate their business, to really grow and scale. And that's this audience right here. So I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I know you're super busy.
Appreciate you, man.
You are an official real estate titan, my friend. So I want to say that for sure and sure. And again, everybody out there, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your time and attention. As always, your love and support. If you like what we're doing at Real Estate Titans, don't forget to like and subscribe everywhere that we're at. Show some love to Daniel as well. Give the feedback on what your thoughts and questions and everything on this episode. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, lionboltmedia.com. Check out their website at Lion Bolt Media. Very specific into growing and scaling your business digitally. Live every Tuesday and Friday afternoon, a different Titan, a different location. We'll catch everybody in the next live episode of Real Estate Titans. Take care. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, man. Thank you.